We're now going to change gears a little bit and start a couple of shorter lectures, followed by our first panel discussion. And our first shorter lecture is being given by Dr. Lynn Isbell. She's a primatologist at the University of California, Davis. And she has a book out called The Fruit, the Tree, and the Serpent, Why We See So Well. And I'm hoping she'll talk about that in her lecture. Dr. Lynn Isbell.
Thank you very much for the introduction. In fact, you are going to see a bit today. Let's see if I can... Do I need to press anything to get it going? Ah, there we go. Okay. Well, on this 40th anniversary of the Leakey Foundation, we're asking the question, what does it mean to be a primate? And at its most basic level, what we're really asking is, what are the characteristics that distinguish primates from other mammals? And if we go to that most basic level, the answer has to be the expansion of the visual sense as the primary sensory interface between the individual and the environment. And there are lots of things that go into the expansion of vision, but some of those things include having large forward-facing eyes and excellent depth perception. So if we really want to know what it means to be a primate, then we have to go back to the very beginnings of primates, maybe 80 million years ago, when primates started to appear, because all primates have these characteristics of large forward-facing eyes. And we need to ask what it was in their environment that favored the expansion of vision. So what I want to do today is provide you with a little bit of a preview of what I'm going to talk about. First, I'm going to give you a very short history of the various hypotheses for primate origins, focusing on their vision. I'm going to then, of course, focus on my own work that implicates snakes as that main environmental selective pressure favoring primate origins via expansion of vision. Then, after that is done, I'm going to take a little bit of time at the end to talk about the possible influence of snakes on our own hominin ancestors, maybe 6 million years ago, maybe 3, somewhere around there, when we became bipedal. And then finally, I want to link up the influence of snakes, and you may be thinking I'm stretching it here. I may be thinking that myself, but let's link snakes to our own species and what they might have done to help us evolve language. That's the framework. Okay, so the brief history. Okay, the first theory was called the arboreal theory, and this suggested that because primates lived their lives in the trees, they would have needed good vision for being able to jump between branches without falling and killing themselves. This was proposed in the early 1900s. Then in the 1970s, the visual predation hypothesis largely replaced that one, and it pointed out that there are a lot of animals that live their lives in the trees, but that don't have forward-facing eyes and good depth perception, squirrels among them. And so it was argued then that if you look at the animal world and you see who else has forward-facing eyes, these are predators. And so the first primates would have been committed insect hunters, needing that good vision to reach and grasp for insects as they fluttered around in the canopy. About 20 years later, another hypothesis came out to challenge that idea, and this hypothesis pointed out that if you look at who has the visual system most closely resembling those of primates, it would be the old world fruit bats. And so it was argued from this that, in fact, the earliest primates were probably not committed insect hunters, but more fruit eaters. They would have also eaten insects, but they would have needed the good vision to see the small fruits in a cluttered canopy environment in dim light. So now along comes my idea. This is the most recent one, and I'm calling it, for lack of a better term, the snake detection theory. And one of the things I point out is that, well, not all fruit bats have large eyes. This New World fruit bat, for example, has small eyes. It also retains its echolocational ability, which the Old World fruit bats have lost. But let's look closer at these Old World fruit bats. It's not all Old World fruit bats that have good primate vision. In fact, those Old World fruit bats that rest in caves during the day don't have primate-like vision. They also retain their echolocational abilities. It's only those fruit bats that rest in lighted places during the day that do resemble primates in their visual systems. And this is exactly where we would have expected early primates to have rested during the day, because they would have been active at night and they would have lived in the trees. So when you're resting, what do? Well, you're not feeding and you're not particularly socializing, but what you still have to do is stay away from predators. You have to be able to detect those predators. And so what I'm suggesting here is that both old world fruit bats and primates needed to be able to detect those predators, and they could do it visually because visual expansion is only possible with sunlight. Okay, now here's the plug for my book. It's going to be available in April if anybody's interested in the details. I'm not going to go into all the details of the theory here because obviously there just isn't enough time. But I'm going to point out a couple other things that I've learned through this process. One is that the expansion of primate vision has been a two-pronged affair. First, involving the modification and expansion of an ancient vertebrate visual system. And this is the visual system that they share with the fruit bats, the old world fruit bats. And this is for the preconscious detection of predators. It allows vertebrates to freeze when they've detected a predator. Not that they're consciously aware of it or that they're perceiving it consciously, but they're able to freeze in their tracks when they see a predator. This is a common vertebrate response. The next one is a modification and expansion of the basic mammalian visual system, and this serves for conscious perception. So after I've frozen, what do I do? Do I move away? Do I stay frozen? Do I mob the predator? What do I do? So they're making decisions based on their perception of the predator. It turns out that constricting snakes are the oldest of the main primates of predators, the other ones being birds of prey, the raptors, and mammalian carnivores. And it's not surprising that primates have in their visual systems a high sensitivity to the cues given off by snakes. So neuroscientists like to describe, go back. How do I go back? How do I go back? How do I go back?
Left arrow.
Sorry.
Left arrow.
Left arrow. I only see one arrow. Left arrow. Maybe this one. No. No, it's not upside down. Let me just go through it all. So I'm sorry. Well, you get all right. Sorry about this. Coming up. Okay, so here we go. All right, so I'm not going to try the pointer here because that's where I got messed up. Neuroscientists describe these patterns as the moving plaid pattern or a checkerboard pattern. Now, in my mind, there's nothing that more closely resembles these images than the skin of a snake. And so primates are very sensitive to the cues given off by snakes. Well, we don't have to see snakes from a distance. We only have to see the other predators from a distance. But it is very, very important to see snakes up close. And when primates see snakes, they have a sort of a standard response where they give alarm calls, they stare at it, fixating their eyes on it, and they may mob the snake, as this 1901 illustration of macaques shows you for a python. I'm not so sure we're any different. Okay, so there are parallels with other animals, and I want to talk about raptors now. There are raptors that specialize on eating snakes. And if you look in the field guides, the birders' field guides that give the diagnostic field characteristics of these snake-eating raptors, you find that they're described as having an owl-like head and prominent yellow eyes. So this is the African. I keep pointing, and it's not okay. Thanks.